Okay, I think we are live. Good. Yes, people are arriving. Well, thank you everybody for joining us as usual. I've seen the attendee list. I think quite a lot of people who have joined have attended one of these before. But if you haven't, I'm just going to take you through a little bit about what we're going to chat about today, a bit about us as a business and sort of how we do these webinars and how often we do them as well. So first things first, bit of housekeeping. So we're going to run through three core topics today. One of those is search engine optimization. One of those is paid media, so PPC, and one of those is web and AI. Now, there will be an opportunity at the end to ask any questions to each of our experts in all of those areas. We should be wrapped up in no more than an hour, probably around 45 minutes or so. And for anybody that doesn't know, we run these quarterly. It's all about what's new in each of those areas. The reason we do it is because so much is changing in marketing now, and I'm sure everybody who's watching today is in a marketing role in some capacity, whether you're leading a team, whether you're within a team, or whether you're just starting out in your career. Hopefully, we can bring you some value today and help you stay on the pulse of what's happening in the industry. Now we're fortunate that as a business we offer sort of all the key areas in our view of marketing, such as SEO, PPC, and web. So hopefully we can sort of give you a nice, well-rounded update today on what's happening, what we're seeing in the industry, what we're seeing across our portfolio of clients as well. So that's a bit more about this webinar and how we structure our webinars generally. In terms of who we are, very quickly, I'll just talk about us as a business. So Digital Maids, we're actually Derby-based, so we're based in the Midlands. Again, I can see from the attendee list, we've got plenty of clients or plenty of people that are aware of us already. But for anybody that doesn't, based in Derby, we're a full-service marketing agency offering the services that I've already mentioned. We've got a whole range of clients from a whole range of sectors. And I think the benefit of that is we get to see what's impacting what sector and take those learnings to other clients and really have a wide breadth of experience, which allows us to put these sorts of webinars together, understand what's changing, what's working, what's not working, and hopefully deliver that to you in sort of 45 minutes or so each quarter. We're reasonably sized. We've got just shy of 30 people working full time, split across those three areas. And in terms of the sorts of clients we work with, I'm not going to run through them one by one, but hopefully by the logos you can see there, some of those you'll recognize, some of those you won't. Again, you can see we've got quite a wide range of clients, and with that comes experience. Anything from really super large companies to small SMEs as well. So again, hopefully that experience and that knowledge and working with those sorts of clients, there's something for everyone in today's webinar. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to the team. Like I say, I've done my introduction. We're going to start with PPC. We're going to move on to web and AI. And then we're going to talk about search engine optimization. And then there'll be a slot at the end to cover off questions and answers as well. So, first things first, I'm going to hand over to Emlyn, who's our team lead in PPC. Over to you, Emlyn.
Thanks, Rob. I'll just share my screen real quick. I'll be seen okay.
You can see that, mate.
Perfect. Yeah, my name's Emlyn. As Rob said, I've got 8 years plus PPC experience, so seen a lot in my time. I've got experience with all the mainstream advertising platforms, Google Ads, Microsoft, Meta, LinkedIn, and I worked in-house and agency-wide. So I'm going to be running you through what's new in paid media, and also what's new in ChatGPT ads. So paid search, paid social, and the latest AI developments. So to begin with, the latest Google Ads update. So the Google reps are going absolutely mad for AI Max, increasingly over time. So the latest in AI Max, they are changing the opt-in to default for many search campaigns. So from the 1st of September, search campaigns using automatically created assets or campaign level broad match settings will automatically be upgraded to AI Max. So yeah, over time, more and more settings and campaign types are getting moved over automatically. So under the new AI Max settings, AI-powered search term matching and AI-generated text will be default. So keep that in mind if you're hoping to keep certain campaigns as a typical paid search campaign, because I'll move on to this, but AI Max has its pros and cons for sure. So advertisers can opt out in campaign settings, but just check if it needs to be done or not, is what I'd say. So yeah, it looks like Google is continuously moving paid search campaigns onto AI Max. So is it just a matter of time until all paid search campaigns are AI Max? Could be possible, because it feels like a bridge in between paid search and Performance Max, and more automation. Yeah, and the latest developments as well. So AI Max is fully out of the beta stage now, with more than 500,000 advertisers adopted. Google is claiming a 7% average lift in conversions at a similar ROAS. At the digital maze, though, we find results are quite mixed, with definitely performance favoring accounts with high conversion data and a more simple service or product offering, because it doesn't tend to pick up nuance in the same way that like having very specific keywords does. So if AI can't correctly um, differentiate certain themes, it will struggle, is what I found. Also, with low conversion data accounts, find that it does scale into less favorable search terms, or search terms that you would deem irrelevant. So yeah, it's very mixed, I find, performance wise. But there's new ways to steer it. So there's two new rows that you'll find in the keywords report. Uh, them being AI expanded matches. So it'll show you, as you can see in the screenshot on the bottom, it'll show you the total clicks from the keywords that you have added. So sort of traditional paid search, and what that has led to. And it shows conversions, conversion value, all of the important performance metrics that you would need. Um, so yeah, you can quite easily see your traditional paid search keywords performance versus the AI Max search terms. And then yeah, the second column is AI Max expanded matches. So the performance, what comes from the AI Max expanded keywords. And then you can see total traffic from search queries that match because of your landing page. And then you can see which what the performance is of landing pages that have expanded because of AI Max. Um, and you can also see total traffic from your URL inclusions. So any inclusions that you've added, you can see it. So yeah, although it's more automation, and these features always start off very black boxed and behind a curtain, but then Google sort of unveils more data as probably as people complain about it, I imagine. Um, yeah, there's also, not confirmed, but there's a new setting in certain people's Google Ads accounts. So you can tick to show ads only on unbranded searches. So that's if you have, traditional paid search brand campaigns, and you're looking to set up a campaign for AI Max that is specifically on unbranded searches. Um, you can keep that going, because one thing that AI and automation does is it can scale into what works, and what often works is brand terms, but that isn't typically what you want to promote, because those users already know of your brand. They aren't brand new fresh users. So if you want to keep your AI Max campaigns separate from your brand campaigns, you can do this. But as I say, it's not official, and it hasn't been in any of the official Google updates. So it's just appeared. So there's, yeah, on certain blogs and articles, people have shared this. So one to watch. AI Max for shopping. I covered this a little bit in the last quarterly business review, sorry, quarterly business update. So AI Max for shopping ships completely on the 24th of July and it extends to standard shopping. So what it does, it customizes your text. So Google rewrites your shopping ad copy on the fly, which is quite interesting. So, typically you have your product title that comes from the shopping feed. AI Max will, if it deems that performance will be better, it will swap out your product title for its own AI written headline, essentially, a bit like a paid search ad, which could be interesting to see if it finds different, better performing product titles other than the ones you've selected. Final URL expansion as well, so it matches your site's most relevant landing pages to a shopper's intent, so it won't be directly mapped to the feed, so product's landing page. It will expand into other landing pages if it believes it's going to get better performance. So yeah, loosening control through time, as Google is always doing. Um, and again, this feels like a stopgap to get everyone onto Performance Max. This feels like a bridge in between. Um, Google Ads Editor now supports AI Max for shopping and search. So the most recent um, Google Ads Editor, so the platform that you can make bulk changes and optimize offline and then upload. That platform now supports this. So that's important. And the numbers, so interestingly, so Google's own claimed uplift has been revised down. So initially it had a 14% increase in conversions at beta launch in May 2025, but since it's been rolled out to more advertisers, they've actually halved that. So it's now they're now pushing a 7% increase in conversions or value at similar cost per conversion or ROAS. So that's I find that interesting, and as I say, results have been very mixed for my personal experience. And independent data, so analysis done on a blog article I found, 30,000 search terms across clients found that 99% of AI impressions led to zero conversions. And that's what I'm finding in some cases as well, like performance improved, but then you look into the search terms and it's or the keywords report that I mentioned earlier, and you find that it's actually from your own keywords, not the ones that AI has moved into. So the key here is to test it for yourself and decide whether to use it or not. At some point, it may not be an option, but while it is, I would yeah, test it and see if it works before completely rolling it out. Another change to Google Ads. So previously there was local services ads, which were essentially in another platform, but that's being folded into Performance Max. So anyone with local ads for any services, whether they're a plumber or electrician or anything local, this will be important, especially in the US. I think there's a deadline of it being completely folded in, but it's a lot longer in the UK. But yeah, if you run local service ads, just keep that in mind before it gets cut off and completely paused. So Microsoft Ads update as well, I will run on to. So Copilot Search Ads is surfacing. So Microsoft is launching ads directly into Copilot Search in the form of a new placement for Performance Max. So it's not a separate campaign type. So it's worth looking if you haven't already done to review your Performance Max campaigns in Microsoft and seeing if you can segment by Copilot. So ads appear beneath Copilot's response in an ad block where Copilot explains its reasoning for including that ad. So yeah, added transparency. So this is Microsoft's answer to Google's AI overview ads, and yeah, one of the first to do this. Obviously, there's ChatGPT ads, AI overview ads, and now this. So obviously the LLMs are looking for ways to become profitable. So this is one of them. So it'll be interesting to see if they continue with this. And there's more Performance Max testing tools, so new ways to experiment with Performance Max. So you can do an uplift experiment by testing the impact of adding PMax alongside search and shopping. There's upgrades, so you can migrate a search or shopping campaign to PMax, then compare how it does against the original, sort of like an A/B test. But it's important to have at least 30 conversions in the last 30 days. Um, yeah, it's important. I'd say double that though at the very least. But this is a proper before and after test that you can control rather than relying on, just swapping it over and seeing how it does. You can do A/B tests, which is pretty good. So on to paid social, is there isn't a great deal. It's a bit thin, but Meta and LinkedIn don't add as many updates as Google does. So Advantage Plus for Meta ads is now mandatory. So Meta has removed the ability to opt out of audience expansion. So yeah, over time, Meta is continuously reducing the amount of specific targeting you can do, and it's taken the targeting out of your hands essentially. So it's continuing to do that. The Advantage Plus shopping conversion threshold has dropped, is halved to 25 per week. So smaller e-commerce accounts can benefit from that. And lookalike audiences, of course, are being phased out in favor of Advantage Plus. So yeah, there's a lower threshold to using it, but Meta is continuously taking targeting out of our hands, and the targeting is mainly done through what the image or the headlines are saying now. And LinkedIn adds a couple of interesting ones. So LinkedIn's adding a hard limit for audiences. So 1,000 segments across matched and predictive audiences. I'd be surprised if there's many that actually reach 1,000. So I'm not sure this will have a large impact, but if you're a huge advertiser with many different segments, 1,000 is your limit. But the best one that I've found is dynamic UTM parameters can now be set at ad account level. So if you have a list of campaigns and ad sets, you can now review the performance of them in your CRM or reporting. So you can review which campaigns and ad sets have led to the best quality leads or which ones have led to sales. So that's extremely useful, I find, for lead gen accounts from a Google and a Meta standpoint. But now it's in LinkedIn as well, which is really good. And the latest with ChatGPT ads. So just to recap, earlier in January, OpenAI confirmed that paid ads are being tested. It was initially rolled out in the US. More recently, it has been rolled out in the UK from 11th of August, alongside several other countries. And there was initially a big minimum fee on there. So I think it was certainly 20,000 at least per month. It might have even been higher, but that has now been dropped. So there isn't a minimum fee, which opens it up for many more advertisers. So there's now a self-serve portal, so an ads account or an ads manager since the 22nd of July, with a few advertisers named as their early ones, but essentially it's now available to everyone, which is good. So yeah, would be interested to hear if anyone's had positive experience. We have clients testing it now, which is good. So yeah, next webinar we should have some data and some positives hopefully. So yeah, it's now out of the pilot stage and positive. So over 2,000 brands have now advertised, but there's still a tiny number, so it should be pretty competitive for like a cost per click standpoint. But certainly it's not as cheap as when Google Ads was first launched, and there's no sort of penny cost per clicks like there was initially on Google. Criteo and Stack Adapt was the way to do it initially. They lowered their minimums, but now there's an ads platform, so you can log in and do it all for yourself. And of course the minimum spend widens the landscape and allows many more people to advertise. Yeah, that's it from me. If you have any questions or queries, there's my email, and I'll pass you on to Liam, who's going to be running through some tech updates.
Brilliant. Thanks, Emlyn. There are quite a few of you on the webinar today, so just while I share my screen, at the bottom of Zoom, if you've got any questions at all, you can pop them into a little Q&A box, and we'll try and cover as many of them as we can at the end. So I'm Liam. I'm Technical Director here at the Digital Maze, and I've been around this space for 15 years or more now. My job generally in the Digital Maze is just keeping up to date with everything going on in the world of tech. I lead the design and development teams here, so we build websites, web applications, and a lot of things in between. So as you can imagine, everything that's been going on the past 12, 18 months, most of my week is around what's going on with the world of AI. So since we last did one of these, I think in May, there have been a few updates and a few good updates. So I'm going to cover those off and then just summarize at the end in the world of the e-commerce framework if there's anything new and shiny that you should be aware of. So starting off with ChatGPT. Historically, we've kind of had two main players in the world of AI with ChatGPT and Anthropic or Claude, and then Gemini has always been around in the background. I'd say for a large part of 2025 through to early part of this year, Anthropic and Claude have generally had the better models and they've been more intelligent and more workable. Whereas with this update, I would say with ChatGPT 5.6, they're kind of on par with Claude in terms of some of their models and how intelligent they are and how useful they are. So OpenAI made a decision a few months ago to get rid of the video generation and stuff like that. And they've focused more on just getting better models behind the scenes to compete with Anthropic. They still do image generation, which is pretty good, but in July they released 5.6, which has 3 versions. So they've called them Sol, Terra, and Luna. Anthropic's equivalent are Sonnet, Opus, and Fable, and they're pretty much very similar now in terms of how they are. There's a few nuances and a few differences, but in terms of like overall quality and all the benchmarks, they're pretty much the same. And this is proving to be a good thing because if you obviously using ChatGPT or Claude, you'll probably have a subscription and everything is all based on these kind of tokens, which nobody really knows what the value are. And because we've got 2 companies and 2 models that are pretty much going toe for toe, we're kind of getting the benefits in terms of pricing and how much we get for that price, because if everybody was using the APIs of these models, it'd be very, very, very expensive. And there's another interesting thing with ChatGPT and the fact of before Figma, which is a design tool, that used to be pretty much powered by the Claude models, but since the release of 5.6, they've now integrated ChatGPT. So typically, whether you're using these ChatGPT models or Claude, they're both very similar now. So it's more of a matter of a personal preference until they release a load more, probably in Q4. And then moving on to Claude itself. So they released Opus is kind of their flagship model. They released that a few weeks ago in Opus 5. Before that, they released a better model in the fact it was called Fable. Some people might have heard that being called Mythos, which got into a bit of trouble, so they had to dilute it down a little bit. And then their kind of speedy day-to-day workhorse is called Sonnet, so very comparable to the ChatGPT models now. And an interesting thing, which is definitely worth trying, is both on ChatGPT and Claude, you get something called an effort dial now. So if you're using Sonnet and it might not quite be understanding what you want, you can up the model effort from medium to high or max, just to see if it gives you a better output. And that's the same with all the GPT models as well. And generally speaking, I'd say over the past month to 6 weeks, all 3 of Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini have all released new models very quickly, and they're all teasing their next generation of models, which are going to be coming out probably around Q4. So all of these are finding it a lot quicker to improve their models and release them, rinse and repeat. So whereas before, like last year, we'd have one every 6 months, now we seem to be getting them every quarter or even every month. And then moving on to Gemini. So again, like the other two, they released 3.6 Flash at the end of July. And then last week, they released another version. I don't tend to use Gemini that much in a work capacity. I use it more for like personal things and almost as a different way of Googling things. The main benefit to Gemini versus the other two is it's a lot quicker. It seems to give you pretty much an instant response, whereas the other two, you kind of just have to wait for it to, do its thinking time and then get back to you. So it's one that's worth looking at because in theory, Gemini have access to a lot of users through their Google and Gmail accounts and things like that. So they're on about releasing Gemini 4 later on this year. So that might bring them up to similar levels to the other two. But we'll just have to wait and find out for that. And then on to Figma. I thought it was worth including a slide on this. So this is the tool we use for designing all of our web stuff and then a few other digital assets. They've been kind of building out their own tools in Figma for AI. So they've released something called Figma Make, which is a better way of prototyping. All of these, you can use Claude or ChatGPT to actually do the AI bits behind the scenes, but you do this all through Figma. And they've started introducing things like code layers. So it's writing what it says is better code for the websites. They acquired a company which does kind of animation work. So they're integrating that in just to bring your designs a bit more to life. And then they've allowed, if one designer is kind of chatting into Figma and doing creations and tweaks, and somebody else jumps on, they can kind of carry on from the same chat. So obviously you need to be careful what's in there, but it allows a bit more continuity between teams. And then just moving on to e-commerce. So not much change in terms of market share between WooCommerce and Shopify. They're two of the most widely used platforms out there for e-com sites. And throughout this year, they've both been kind of copying each other's features as the months have gone on, and not much has changed there really. So Shopify is a little bit ahead of something called UCP, which allows agents to kind of get better access to your store's products and databases. WooCommerce are apparently releasing that in the next couple of months. But outside of that, Shopify is integrating AI, making improvements to usability for store owners, and just keep on working through that really. There's nothing major they've released over the past quarter. And in the world of WooCommerce, again, it's very similar. So they are focusing on speed because they know that's typically where Shopify will beat them. So there's lots of speed and performance updates that they've been working on. There was a major version of WordPress released a few weeks ago, WordPress 7. And again, that is all around how to connect AI agents to your store or website. So you can use it to kind of draft pages and check stock levels of products and things like that. And there'll be a lot more of that coming out in Q4 for both Woo and Shopify. And that's it from me today. So that's a quick roundup. Like I say, anyone's got any questions, just pop them in the bottom. And I will hand over to Neil, who's going to walk you through the world of SEO.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Liam. I'm just going to share my screen and bring up the SEO slides. One moment. There we go. Yeah, so I'm Neil, the SEO team lead here at Digital Maze. And yeah, I'm going to be running through the main changes for the past 3 months in the worlds of SEO and GEO. So to start with, breaking news the past couple of days is that Google is currently in the process of rolling out the August 2026 spam update. So for anyone who doesn't know, several times a year there are Google core updates and Google spam updates, which are major changes to its algorithm and can have a big impact on rankings and visibility in SEO. Spam updates are, as you would suggest from the name, they are aimed at punishing spam and sites that put out low quality content. But they can also have a knock-on effect for sites who do things well. So it's worthwhile checking your site's visibility and rankings and clicks, etc. after the update has finished rolling out, which will probably be in the next day or so. The spam updates are generally 1 or 2 days in length. And yes, the full effects of a spam update tend to take a few days to be seen. Another big update from Google in the past couple of months has been the addition of the AI assistant channel in Google Analytics. So from the 13th of May, Google started adding this channel to all of the GA4 properties. And I think by now the majority have it in there. And what this essentially is just attributing any traffic from ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, etc., that comes to your site to a specific channel of AI assistant. The only frustrating thing about this is that it doesn't backdate that data. So it's useful for seeing trends in the past couple of months and seeing how many clicks you're getting a day from AI tools, etc. But you can't actually see like the comparison to what it was last year, for example. There is a way that you can do this, and you have to add a custom channel group to your GA4 property. And I have put a link there in the bottom right corner to a blog from our site where we do explain how to do this. So we still use that for year-over-year comparisons, while the AI Assistant official channel is still gathering data. Similarly, Google has also added some AI performance data to Google Search Console. This has started rolling out since the 3rd of June this year. And yeah, the majority of sites should now have this in their GSC report. You can find it in an expandable tab under your main performance report on the left-hand side of the nav. But what it shows at the moment is only impressions data rather than clicks, which is quite frustrating. But it does give a good indication of what pages on your site are getting seen in Google's AI tools. So it is a good way to kind of know which content works for your site and which doesn't, so you can focus on the kind of content that does work. Next up is another change in Google's Search Console, which will be significant for anybody who puts a lot of time into organic social marketing. So they've now introduced Instagram, TikTok, X/Twitter, and YouTube to Google Search Console. What this means is that if, say, somebody searches for whatever keyword and your Instagram reel or your TikTok appears in the search results, you will now be able to see that in Google Search Console. So this is quite helpful, as I say, for anyone who focuses a lot on video content, because before you wouldn't know if you were ranking particularly well in Google's own search results page for one of your TikToks or one of your X posts, etc. So this is really, really helpful, I think, for marketers who focus on organic social alongside organic search. And yeah, you can add them to your Google Search Console profile. So this is some interesting data from Shopify, obviously one of the massive e-commerce platforms, as Leah mentioned earlier on in the presentation. On their earnings call last week, they were doing a lot of reporting on kind of the impact of AI traffic, etc. And the end conclusion was that they treat AI as a complement to organic search traffic rather than a substitute for it. According to Shopify, organic search is still one of the largest sources of buyer traffic, and is still growing, but that AI referred sessions tend to land directly on product detail pages, which means that they do have a high conversion rate. And this is something that we see a lot with our e-commerce clients now, that traffic from AI sources, the conversion rate compared to organic search and organic shopping is quite a lot higher. So yeah, the overall amount of sessions you might get to your site from AI is still quite low, but I would suggest if you are in e-commerce business, you may be seeing quite a decent conversion rate from that traffic. So something else which I've found interesting in the past couple of weeks is a big study from Moz, which is one of the big SEO tools, who published a controlled study on the effects of schema. So schema is a bit of code that you can add to your site to make it easier for bots and AI models, etc., to understand what is on the page. There's been quite a lot of talk in the SEO world over the past couple of years whereby adding as much schema as you possibly can to your site will improve your rankings in organic search. But from this study, it seems that the difference is negligible at best. But that isn't to say that you shouldn't be adding schema to your site. It's definitely still very, very useful from an AI engine perspective, and trying to get as much accurate information into Google's results page about your products and about your services as possible. So we still recommend schema to as many of our clients as possible, but it possibly doesn't have as much impact on your actual organic search rankings as previously thought. So obviously a lot of talk in this industry is about AI content. And again, some data is suggesting that AI content is obviously not particularly good from a Google perspective. They actually handed out a manual action in July to limit the rankings of a large forum site who had started using an AI bot to respond to messages on that platform. And because an AI bot cannot give like proper knowledge and experience on a subject, and it just works from knowledge that is already found on the internet, it's obviously not the kind of quality content that Google wants to be put out there. So AI content is not automatically bad, and I've got a couple of slides to come on that. But it does show that if you use it completely as a replacement for human content, you may well get penalized by Google. So another big news story last week in the SEO and GEO world was that Claude text is now watermarked. So this means that any text that you're copying out of Claude and maybe putting onto your site or into a social post or whatever, there will be some sort of watermark within that text to say that it has been written by Claude. There's no kind of hidden text or hidden characters in there, but it kind of works by changing the randomness that Claude uses between two words that mean the same thing. So Claude will start kind of interchanging words within the text as a way to kind of show to publishers that the content has been made by Claude. This follows an EU law that came into effect in August that requires publishers to make it clearer when content has been made by AI. So yeah, if you are using Claude to generate all of your content, be mindful that this is now going to be clear to everybody. And it may be that this begins to affect your SEO traffic over time, or just the trust that users have in the content that you've put out there. And in a similar vein, Google also has its own tool called Synth ID, which is its watermarking technology. and it's had it for a while now, and it uses it mainly for images and videos at this point. But users, for example, could ask Gemini, has this piece of content been made through AI? And Gemini will be able to tell whether or not it has. So, in a similar way to Claude, if you are just copy and pasting text from Gemini or AI mode, etc., then yeah, it's going to be pretty clear. So, how can you actually use AI for web content? This is one of the big questions that we get asked on these quarterly webinars, but also by clients, prospective clients, etc. And the honest answer is that Google does not actually care whether or not a human or a model types the content. It cares whether or not the page adds something, whether it adds value or not. So there are some good ways to use AI for your content. The safest wins for us are on either side of the actual writing part. So to start with, research through AI is really good. Whether that's clustering a bunch of keywords that you want to target, whether that's reading through competitor pages in the blink of an eye, rather than having to spend hours on research. It can also be good at briefing. So if you send out content briefs to copywriters, etc., it can put it into a good structure with everything that you want to be in there, and then the copywriter can actually write that content. And it's also good at proofing. So if you do struggle with grammar or kind of readability, etc., using AI at the end of your content process is a good way to check for that kind of thing. But the most important and most interesting bit about this slide that I would say, you could have a piece on your site that has been written entirely by AI and it can still rank perfectly well for your SEO keywords, so long as it has some sort of insight, some sort of knowledge, some unique content that you have provided to the model. So, say for example, you begin giving it your own sales data, some tests that you've run, some specific surveys that you've used, some price comparison. So long as you're giving genuinely unique insights, it's fine if AI then writes the content itself, because as I said at the top of this slide, Google cares whether the page that you've written actually adds something, whether it actually gives its users some insight, some knowledge. So essentially, there are many ways to use AI for web content, but please don't just copy and paste out of AI from a really basic prompt. Like, please write me a blog on whatever your specific topic is. So yeah, that's the end of my slides here, but I have just put a slide together here on where are the best place to get your SEO news, because again, we get asked this a lot. The four main places that I use are Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Roundtable, but also the SEO thread on Reddit, and also the Google Search Central blog, which comes directly from Google with the main updates from them. So if you periodically check these four sources, you will be able to keep up to date with everything that's happening in this space. But another good space to get your SEO news is on LinkedIn. There's a lot of good creators on there, and my own profile now. I'm posting 2 to 3 times a week with SEO and AI search updates. So if you do want to follow me, then you can see my LinkedIn there is Neil Bates 95. And yeah, that is the end of my slides. If anybody wants to ask me any questions specifically after this, then you can get in touch with me, and my email is there.
Excellent. Thank you all. Nice plug there, Neil, as well. I like that. Fair play on the LinkedIn plug. Emlyn, Liam, Neil, can we all chuck our cameras on? And I'm going to field some questions. So For anyone that doesn't know, there'll be a Q&A button down at the bottom. If you want to sling any questions in for the guys across SEO, PPC, web, AI, anything you feel we could support with, drop them in and we'll spend sort of the last 10 minutes or so just going over that, and hopefully we can help some of you guys out. Oh, Nicole's asked for a link to your profile on LinkedIn, so hopefully someone can drop that in. Right, first question. When drafting using AI and getting to a final version, I'm going to guess this is an SEO question, getting to a final version after a lot of human input, but copying out of AI as a final proofread, is that going to look like it's AI generated?
So
AI is always the last pass at the moment for proofing purposes.
yeah, this is one of the pushbacks on the Claude watermarking thing that I talked about, is that yes, if you are then copying it out of Claude, even if you've kind of put a lot of human input into that, it will be watermarked in some way. So I suspect over the next couple of months there'll be some sort of updates to that to try and avoid penalizing anybody who has obviously put a lot of their own research into the content. But as I said at the end, I don't see that there should be any issues with your text being watermarked by Claude in terms of your SEO rankings, etc., so long as it is human insights, etc. So yes, it will be watermarked, but I don't think it would have any impact on your rankings, basically.
Yeah, quite a lot of questions on the watermarking, to be fair. My understanding is that it doesn't matter whether you get the text from Claude, paste it into a notepad, whatever. The watermarking is in the sequencing of the characters or the sequencing of the words used, etc. It's not something that I think is detectable by anybody. Only they sort of know the secret recipe for that. My other understanding, and maybe Neil, Liam, Emlyn, you can correct me if I'm wrong. My other understanding is actually this is actually happening within ChatGPT, Gemini, all of them as well. So this is not exclusive just to Claude. Claude are the only ones that have made some noise about this. So whilst I think people are getting a little bit on Anthropic's back about this, my understanding, again, could be wrong, is that this is an industry standard now that they have to adhere to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the
as I said in one of my slides, it's basically it's come about because of an EU
That's it. Yeah.
law that's come in. So all of the tools will start having to do this, but as Rob said, Claude have probably been the most open about it, so they've got the most stick, which seems a bit harsh because I think yeah, everybody will have to start doing the same thing.
Oh. Right, it looks like there's a PPC question here. So, with Google AI Max generated product titles, could this lead to hallucinations and false advertising of products on the shopping tab?
I think Google AI is usually pretty good at not expanding into irrelevant titles and things, but I think it's just important to verify what you see when it's reporting. I think the risk is over exaggerating certain attributes, um, like yeah, promoting it as super cheap or ultra thin or things like that. So I think it's just important to monitor it because it is very early days as well.
Got you. That makes sense. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Still a case for a copywriter, Neil? I think our collective view is that that is the case. A copywriter is still just as valuable as before.
Yes, I mean the quality of the content that our own copywriter puts out compared to what ChatGPT or Claude puts out is just better, and you can see it's more in depth and it's more natural. But that's not to say that all AI content is bad. But I do think that eventually people may even start railing against AI content, and then it'll kind of come full circle where everybody's desperate for only human written content. So yeah, I would suggest the copywriter will come out of this looking pretty good, to be honest.
No, I agree. Yeah. There's a question about Google Search Console. I think that's in relation to one of your slides. Um, will it include LinkedIn posts, TikTok, X? Is that sort of segmented away now? Is that easier to report on?
So yeah, so at the minute it's X, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Um, but it's not data from any of those channels. It's data to say that in Google's own results page, your video or your piece of content appeared at probably on page one. So you will be able to know the impressions and clicks data that you've got from that piece of content appearing in Google and then hopefully going through to your site or through to your social profiles. But no, there's not LinkedIn at the minute.
Got you. Let me have a look through some of the questions. Quite a few on watermarking, quite a few on what would be considered low quality content in relation to spam. You got any general thoughts on that, Neil?
Yeah, so the spam guidelines from Google have kind of been the same for a while, but they did update them in May to include content that has purely been written by AI without any kind of input from a human. So if your site has got like 100 pages on it, and it's just pure AI content with no insights, no unique content at all, then that is the kind of site that will get penalized by a spam update. But it's also like old content that's been on your site for years and hasn't been updated, possibly out of date, or is not relevant anymore. Yeah, again, that's the kind of content that gets labeled as spam. So I would suggest updating your content if you have got any old content on there, or if you've got a lot of AI content, it's probably time to bring in some sort of human input into that.
Yeah. Do we think social media platforms will start checking for these watermarks? Probably. Yeah, and labeling them as AI generated. Yeah. In fact, I think LinkedIn already introduced a feature where you can report's probably a harsh word, but you can sort of give LinkedIn a heads up that this looks like it's AI generated. Um, is that the norm now? Probably yes. I think the skill is to how to use AI to make it look more human readable, or how to use it for ideation, and then generate a good post out the back of it. But yeah, I think the honest answer is that they will be labeling it and probably using the watermark to detect that. Does anyone still even post on X? I think the answer is yes, they do, but for business purposes, probably not anymore. My view, and feel free to jump in, guys, my view is that X is probably more of a news platform now, public affairs, quite political. I get a lot of AI news from there as well. But in terms of a place to promote a business, or particularly a service-based business like ours, I don't find or see its use anymore. It feels very community based now. It feels quite quite news. It's a great place to go if you want on the pulse news. You want to find out something the minute it happens, stuff like that. But as a place to advertise an SME, probably not. But as this person quite rightly said, it depends on your audience. But I would guess I think for B2B personally, it's probably not quite as effective as something like LinkedIn. Although it certainly used to be. I remember Twitter being quite a useful place for us when we started the business all them years ago. Interesting point in the spam part. I've noticed a couple of websites. You're getting pelters today, Neil. I've noticed a couple of websites heavily generated by AI from content structure. I guess the question is, how harmful is it to use AI to pump out a lot of content? Is that if it's useful content, is that still a bad thing?
I did actually. I had a slide on this in Q1, where essentially there was a big study where SEO Ranking, which is one of the big SEO tools, they did a study where they essentially made a load of websites, pumped them full of AI content, and then saw what the results were. And it essentially showed that it worked for a few weeks. They got quite a decent amount of clicks, but then Google obviously caught up with it, and their clicks and impressions fell off a cliff. and yeah, they got host sites didn't get anything at all. So I think Google is wise to it now. And the key thing that I keep going back to is that there has to be some unique insight. It's the same as it's always been. You could have got a copywriter 5 years ago to write a piece of content with no unique insights at all. They've just taken the insights from somewhere else, and it will have not ranked well at all. So it's it's the same it's the same idea as before, that your content has to be unique and interesting.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of answers this next question. I think this is a really good question to ask, actually, because I think quite a lot of people will be either in this position or find themselves in this position in the not too distant future. We're about to launch a new website, and with that comes a lot of new content to create. You know, as a manager or as somebody leading that project, you're probably likely to outsource some of that content to internal team members, and they're likely to use AI. I think that's just the natural process that most businesses go through now. So, have you got any advice or best practices on what you would do in that situation, Neil?
It is tough, that is, because as you say, especially when people elsewhere in the business are not used to writing content,
Mm.
etc. So it can be the obvious thing is to use AI. But again, if they're adding their own unique insights to that piece of content, if it's coming from kind of experience of having given that, say you're writing a service page, and the person who's putting the content together using AI obviously has experience of that service, of kind of how the service works, the outcomes, the challenges, etc. Again, so long as it's about putting as much into the AI tool as you possibly can. If you just put a basic prompt in, which is like write me a service page on PPC management, you will get a really poor piece of content. But if you give it lots of data about kind of the PPC services that you offer, the results that your services have given, the kind of clients you work with, the people in the team, their own experiences, etc. If you give it lots and lots of information, the content that will come out will still be of a good quality and shouldn't affect your SEO rankings too much.
Got you. Well, it looks like that is all we have time for. Anybody who has any questions that we haven't got around to answering, feel free to email hello@thedigitalmaze.com. We'll try and get back to you. Hopefully, everyone found that useful. Thank you, everyone, for joining. To find out more about us, it is thedigitalmaze.com. I think a really good area on our website is the tools area. So you'll see a resources drop down in the main navigation. There'll be tools within that. Neil has produced most of these tools, but there's some really good free resources there for anybody who wants to explore that or wants to use it as part of your workflow. We will be following up with a bit of an email, offering some more free stuff, audits, etc. You don't need to jump on a call. You don't need to speak to anybody. We're just happy to run an audit on your website and help in any way we can. So look out for that. That should be with everyone today or tomorrow. And yeah, thank you again. We're going to be running one of these in Q4. Look out for the next invite, and we'll see you again then.